But let's now talk about our own markets, everything that you should track from an India market standpoint, as well as the stocks that could be in focus today. We have Mangalam, Hormaz and Upasana all joining us for the trade setup. Guys, a very good morning to all of you. Hormaz, let me come to you first. We were just going through the global picture. And really no complaints today.
No complaints, absolutely. And the kind of global session that we had last night on Wall Street, it absolutely gives you no reason to complain, because the S&P 500, just like the Nifty, has that habit of teasing market participants before a landmark. It made an intraday high of 4999 and fell just 5 points short of that historic 5,000 mark. And just like India, the US is also a market where good earnings are getting rewarded. Disney, though the numbers were slightly subdued, but the cost-cutting guidance that impressed the markets, and the stock rose after hours. Even ARM shares rose as much as 40% in after hours trading because of some bullish management commentary before pairing some of those gains. Now, back to our own markets, just like as is the case before an event, the Nifty is keeping its cards close to its chest, and it was just like that yesterday as well. No movement at all. The Nifty ended almost unchanged ahead of the RBI policy today, and it continues to face resistance above that 22,000 mark. Why it also is facing resistance is because banks are not lending support whatsoever, and that Nifty bank continues to remain the weak link. It gained 100 points yesterday, but there was no support whatsoever from HDFC Bank or ICICI Bank, the two index heavyweights. What lent support though was State Bank of India, and India's largest lender ended at a record high yesterday, and it's up almost 6% already this month. So some good moves there in State Bank of India, especially because it's been an underperformer in this PSU rally. What also did well were the smaller PSU banks, Indian Overseas Bank, UCO Bank, Central Bank of India, all of them gaining between 10 to 15%, and those stocks, but mind you, the stocks have a very low free floats. We need to keep an eye out on that. Earnings reactions will come today from Tata Consumer, Lupin, JK Paper, and earnings today from Apollo Hospitals, LIC and Grasim as well. And Asian markets are mixed, but the GIFT Nifty is indicating a positive start for our own markets as well. Back to you.
All right, positive start. Let's see if we can sustain or maybe build on those levels as well. Hormaz, thanks a lot for that. Upasana, let me come to you now. You know, Hormaz was just mentioning all of the banks which have been a bit of a weak link, so we're going to watch for those. But take us through all of the stock-specific news that came through as well, because a lot of the bigger earnings now.
Well, good morning, Pavitra. First up is Tata Consumer. The company reported a good Q3, might beat on the margins. The margins were at 15% versus the poll of 14.4%. Next up is Lupin. The company saw strong Q3 again, margins at 20%, which is highest in 10 quarters. And next up is Cummins. The company reported again a strong Q3, beat on all front, beat revenue, EBITDA or PAT. The company reported highest ever revenue and profit on the back of strong domestic demand. Next up is Manappuram Finance. The company reported an NII growth of almost 35% on one-year basis, and NIM stood at 10-quarter high, somewhere around 15%. Next up is Power Grid. That will also be on our radar. The revenue is in line while the margins are above the poll. The revenue saw an uptick of 2.6% on one-year basis. Next up is Mangalore Chemical and Fertilizer. The company announces a merger with Pradeep Phosphates Limited. Next up is Piramal Pharma. The US FDA has conducted a pre-approval inspection of US facility from 29th Jan to 6th of Feb. On conclusion of this, the company has the US FDA has come up with 3 observations. Next up is BPCL. BPCL's joint venture Petronet LNG renews 20-year partnership with Qatar Energy. That's the reason the stock will remain in focus today.
All right, that is a long list. Upasana, thanks a lot for getting us all of that action. Let me also bring Mangalam in. He's looking at all of the cues from the futures and options space. Mangalam, expiry day?
Expiry day indeed, and event heavy as well. We have the RBI policy, but yesterday it looked like a bit of a test match, you know, where both sides played well, and eventually it was a draw. So the Nifty, if you look at the intraday chart, you know, opened higher, thereafter went lower. At lower levels, we saw a bit of a recovery with just about 1 point in terms of a change to show for. But the big trigger today will be the RBI policy along with the weekly options expiry. And yesterday we did see the FII's return to the selling in cash market, close to around 1,700 crore worth sold. And if you look at the top Nifty losers, it would tell you that, you know, the selling was in the IT stocks, Tech, Infosys, TCS. These are typically FII selling stocks as well. And that's interesting because at any given point in time, one of the sector continues to underperform, which leaves the Nifty in a bit of a range itself. If you look at the futures, the open interest on the Nifty Bank changed a lot more than the Nifty itself. And then you corroborate that data with what the FIIs did in index futures. For the second day running, their pair trade of long Nifty, short Nifty Bank continued. They sold about 1,253 crores in index futures on a net basis, but In that, the Nifty purchase was 364 crores, whereas the Nifty Bank, they sold for the second day running 1600 crore worth selling in Nifty Bank futures. Ahead of the RBI policy and weekly expiry, we have 22,000 call on the Nifty, which is higher in open interest. And on the lower side, we have the 21,900 put, which also is seeing a fair amount of open interest. For a premium of 50 rupees a pop, the street is playing for a range of 21,850 to 22,050, which is basically the high and low of yesterday's trading session itself. Just watch out for Delta Corp, SAIL and Balrampur Chini. All of them have entered F&O ban today.
Okay, Mangalam, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those cues. That is the trade setup as we see it this morning. We do need